And we're live. Happy feast of St. Cyril's and Methodius. Cyril and Methodius. Welcome, as you can tell.
Well, we can still say
Yeah.
St. Valentine's Day. I mean,
All
you're
right.
wearing
Oh, Josh,
pink. I'm
thank
wearing
you.
red. I mean, who are
Oh,
we trying to fool?
I know. And there may or may not be some red roses down on my dining room table today. So we can say St. Valentine's Day too. Happy Pink Day, or however you celebrate today. This episode of LOOPCast is brought to you by Divine Providence Press. You'll hear more about them in just a minute. But first, you may notice someone's missing today. And yes, indeed, the great Papa Pogo paternity leave tour has begun. And everyone's off saving the world today. Tinfoil Tom, the good-looking one, he is off combating Planned Parenthood on the Hill. So yeah, go do that instead of hang out on Loopcast. But we have a great tour planned for you on Monday. We're going to welcome Jeremy Tate to talk all things education. Linda McMahon, WWE. Jeremy's going to give us the lowdown on everything going on at the education department. We're going to have Seamus Coughlin on while Tom is snuggling his baby of Freedom Tunes. He's going to be here. And the inimitable Peachy Keenan to tell us what it's really like in the Palisades right now. So it's going to be great. But today, you just have me and Josh. How are you feeling about this, Josh?
Hey, why not? Let's
Yeah,
do this. But I do
let's do
want
it.
to say before we get started with the rest of the show, we just want to ask everyone listening live and anyone who listens to this later to offer prayers for our Holy Father. He's been hospitalized again, obviously 88 years old, bronchitis. So anytime, anyone, gets hospitalized, it's always, a concern, but obviously when the fact he's 88 years old. So we offer our prayers, especially today for the Pope. I hope that he feels better. And we just pray for the doctors who are tending to him as well.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for that reminder. One more reminder for you in the chat. It is FAQ Friday. We are going to have time at the end of the show to field your deepest burning questions, all things cultural, political, personal, and the Oracle of Petoskey will answer them. So please drop your, no promises, but drop your questions that you have in the chat, and Rosie will have us check them out at the end of the show. But first, Divine Providence Press. Guys, who isn't looking for more books to buy? So we have a new book from Divine Providence Press. Kiss Me Goodnight is about the innocent love a family has for one another, real to life and rooted in sacred scripture and sacred tradition. This is a book for the ages, everlasting. The visually stunning book is for children from preschool up to 7 years old, but it's written to be enjoyed by the entire family. We have a really cute picture up on the screen. It looks like the Blessed Mother and baby Jesus. And I mean, what's not to love about the Blessed Mother? So check them out. Kiss Me Goodnight is the perfect companion to other faithful books published by Divine Providence Press and available online through the EWTN Religious Catalog at ewtnreligiouscatalog.com or call the number on your screen. It's a great gift for baptisms, birthdays, Christmas, Easter, many other celebrations of life. I know we have a couple First Communions coming up in the Catholic Vote family here. It's featured on EWTN's bookmark with Doug Keck and has been awarded the prestigious Seal of Approval by the Catholic Writers Guild and endorsed by sacred artist Gwyneth Thompson Briggs. Again, it's available to you at the EWTN Religious Catalog or by calling the number on your screen.
And that book got the Papa Pogo seal of approval. So
yeah, exactly. And he would know.
I mean,
Now,
that's right.
proud Papa of
Little ones,
2.
yeah.
It's very exciting. So yeah, pray for the Pegasic family and congratulations to all of them there. We have so much to talk about. I'm a little scattered. I don't even know where to start. So I'm going to start with some really cool news from the church because let's have a little pick-me-up on Friday morning.
Yeah.
So Pope Francis has decreed that the liturgical feast of Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta will be added to the church's universal calendar, which I'm very excited about this one. Mother Teresa, a great saint of my lifetime. When we entered the church in 1994, she was still alive and kicking and was a huge inspiration to me as a young teenager getting into the Catholic world. And I know is a great inspiration to President Donald Trump, dropped her name yesterday in his press conference with the Prime Minister of India. So yeah, respected all around the world.
I mean, the United States, we celebrated her feast on our calendar already, but it's just nice to see that this is going to be part of the universal calendar. and she is. I mean, she did so much to help so many people and inspire, hundreds of millions of people with her charity. And I just can't help but think about how, despite all of that, so much admiration by the press and everything, she used her, voice, as it were, when she came to the National Prayer Breakfast
Right.
to talk about the sin of abortion and talk about how, in fact, in rich nations, she saw more poverty, not just material poverty, but spiritual poverty. So she was somebody that was willing to take on the sacred cows of modern life where we try to ignore God. She was
Right.
a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman.
Yep. And now helping us from the Father's house, as John Paul II would say. All right, moving back into the United States, though, here we go. We had so much happening. Confirmations this week for Trump's cabinet. Two of the most dramatic appointees, Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., are in. I think these two figures represent a departure from like previous GOP patterns of appointing cabinet picks
I
for
mean, did you
sure.
see the thing that when she testifies, she was wearing all white, like she's the
Yeah,
superhero or whatever, and then she gets sworn in and she's all black. Yeah, ah,
I
this
know.
is a new
Here she
new
comes.
phase for the superhero here. It's
Here
just
she
kind of funny.
comes. Well, so they were both confirmed. The votes were as expected, exactly along party lines, with the exception of the glorious Mitch McConnell, defecting.
Well, this
Uh,
is what I'm saying. Like, if at the beginning of this year you said there's going to be one senator who on the Republican side is going to routinely vote no on these nominees,
mhm.
we're like, okay, is it Murkowski
Murkowski or Collins, right?
or right? And I'm like, maybe Murkowski, but no, she's got a tough race. I'll go Collins. No,
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell. You're like, what? Like,
Yeah.
I think Trump's right when he said, like, this is just him getting back at me. It's a personal thing. It's not like he's against. I mean, like maybe his vote against Hegseth was because Mitch McConnell loves the defense contractors and stuff like that. But the rest of
Right.
them, like, really, like, what you keep voting no? Like,
Yeah, like, what is that? Is that some prophetic gesture or something? And to be honest, like, I don't even know if Mitch McConnell really knows what he's doing at this point, but, he's like Biden himself, like, just kinda not all there, but,
maybe. I mean,
uh
it seems different. Like where him, where it's like the connection between your mouth and your brain, where just like we call it a glitch, where you just like you can't do the word. I still think he's there.
Mhm.
I don't think he's got total dementia like Biden does, but like he said, I'm not going to vote for RFK because I had polio, which I get. So I mean,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, but just that he consistently is
C
voting no on
every
all these
time.
it's kind of.
Yeah, yeah. Alright, so Josh, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., we have a Kennedy back in the White House for in a certain sense, and it is amazing. I mean, this is a disruptive pick in a way. I I wanted to just lay it out there. What should RFK? He's headed to the FDA or something today to do something. What should he do first? What do you expect him to prioritize?
Well, I think I mean, I like to try to remind people that there are a lot of Americans who are disaffected with both of the political parties. The smash
Mhm.
mouth going for your throats, yelling at each other that both parties do. And I think, look, I'm not trying to denounce it. Like we are a very divided country. There are substantive differences between these two. It's not
Mhm.
just a nonsense food fight. In other words, like it really is, a big battle. But there are a lot of Americans who think to themselves, like, with everything that's going on with Pfizer, these big corporations, why is the food different in this country than others? I mean, part of the reason why Americans are getting fatter is because we're sedentary and we're distracted by our phones.
Right.
Um, actually, I want to take just a second on that. Matthew Peterson came up with an idea 15 years ago, and I just heard about it because he reposted it. It's one thing to give up meat on Friday, but what if we gave up our phones on Friday? Like that would actually be
Mm.
a real penance, like
If
modern day life.
only.
Yeah, Um, but so I just feel like, if you're talking about what RFK is probably going to first try to start to do, I think he's going to obviously he's probably got some ideas on things that he wants to, some pharmaceuticals he wants to be reviewed and stuff like that. But I do think he wants to push us away from some of the things like in this country, we subsidize corn because it's easy and cheap for us to make, but we subsidize it in large. and because we do so much of that, corn syrup, corn, all this stuff, there's a lot of
Right.
products that are like cheap, like, corn chips, Doritos, all this kind of stuff. They're artificially cheap because it's so cheap
It's
and
subsidized,
it's
right?
subsidized, right? So in other words, we're like people. I remember talking with people about it, and like, oh gosh, I want to eat healthy, but healthy food's so expensive. This other stuff is cheap. I'm like, the whole point is this cheap food is artificially cheap. Like the quote expensive food that's really good for you. That's what food is. This
Right.
other stuff is just kind of snacks or whatever. It's not food. And it would be nice to get, like to think about some of the changes that we've made, like moving, like we moved away from frying in beef tallow to frying in vegetable oils. And there's some consequences to some of this stuff. And it's going to be nice to have somebody come through here and say, why do we do it this way?
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of our policy over the last, supposedly we have an FDA and a USDA so that this is the extensive reason to make sure that we have healthy stuff that we're eating, right? I mean,
Right. Right.
because
Or drugs that we're taking. Hmm.
right, I mean, this all passed in 1906
Hmm.
because the food was wretched, but now we get a situation where maybe there is a little corruption going on, where companies are able to exert their influence and get stuff passed. What's like, well, why is it that they get healthy, Fruit Loops over here, not healthy, but healthier Fruit Loops in
Healthier.
Canada, and
Right.
ours isn't. Like, oh, because we want this radioactive neon color, and it's like, I don't know if that's a good
Mm,
idea. So
yeah.
I do think that's going to be one of his first things to do. And the thing is, with that, RFK was able to tap into some of this independent sentiment, like, hey, finally somebody's talking about issues that we do really care about.
Hmm.
And I think he brought with him, like his polls. I mean, he was 2 to 4% in the polls. He had a real opportunity to be kind of disruptive, and his endorsement of Trump did deliver a lot of voters.
It's
And,
true.
and so, it'll be interesting. Keep that coalition going. See if you can build on it because, you know, Donald Trump winning the popular vote. You have to remember, in the 21st century, Republicans won the presidency 4 times, two of which was not with the popular vote. So, like,
Right.
not that it's required, but it would
It's
be
helpful.
helpful. Yeah.
It's helpful, right. And I think, like, for me too, in addition to the food issue, and RFK, when he at his swearing in yesterday, he was clearly very moved. He said, I begged God on my knees for 20 years to put me in a position to help end the chronic childhood, the health crisis going on. And a lot of people are worried about the vaccine thing. And obviously, during his confirmation hearings, the Democrats were like, you're a vaccine denier and polio and all that. And I think the concerns, like, I understand the concerns. We vaccinate our children for like the basic stuff, not on the schedule that the CDC recommends, but the I think his response to those criticisms during his confirmation, it was just like, look, I just want the science, the science that can be replicated, studies that have been confirmed, to be public knowledge and to be out there, and to get a vaccine schedule, if we even need a schedule of required vaccines, that makes sense based on the science. And he clearly pointed to cases where that hasn't happened, right? And there's all kinds of, there's collusion between big pharma. So I think for me, it's the food, it's the medication, and then of course on the abortion issue. I mean, he's going to be the head of the FDA, the CDC, the NIH, and actually getting to the bottom of what went on with the chemical abortion drugs, mifepristone and misoprostol. I want to know, and I think women deserve to know what these drugs are, and why were all of the safeguards and stopgap measures removed in the last 12 years progressively by the Obama administration, then the Biden administration. And that's really important because, as we know,
The American people might be more willing to listen to RFK
exactly on that issue.
on this issue because he's
Hmm.
like, he's
He is pro-choice. Yeah.
you can't just automatically segment him like, oh well, if it was like some senator that was very well known for being pro-life, oh well,
Hmm.
here's this pro-life senator's agenda. Now he's at the HHS and he's going to do all this stuff. Whereas Kennedy's like built up a reputation for saying, no, I think we really need to be clear about what we're putting into our bodies and that kind of stuff. So
Exactly. Exactly. Hopefully, that's what we got going on.
I
Oh, I
wanted to
see
tee
it.
something up real quick
Go
here.
for it.
I mean, it's interesting though. The big controversy, of course, over the last few days and week or so has been Democrats, they're fumbling. They're trying to get their footing on how to push back against the White House. And this
Little
is their idea.
little scrambling. Yep.
This is our idea. We'll say, Elon Musk, this is terrible. This is horrible. Well, get this, okay? They did a focus group in Arizona where they pulled together all these voters who they all voted. All these voters in the swing focus group. Every one of them, to a man, voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
And then they voted for Donald Trump in 2024. So we're talking pure swing voters, Arizona, purple swing state.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked them, these 11 voters, what do you think about what Trump's doing? What do you think about, all this stuff that's going on with Elon Musk and DOGE and all this other stuff? Well, it gets kind of interesting. Courtney, 34, she says, I agree we need the Constitution and we need rules and procedures. But at the same time, how are we going to make big changes? If someone like Trump being unconventional, we need him to be doing these things, to be making these executive orders and making these big changes for big changes to happen. Another person, Jonas, I like how he's cleaning house in the government. Another one, Ann, 54. I approve because I believe he's transparent and we haven't had that for the last 4 years. All these respondents were approving of what Trump and Musk were doing. So Democrats keep attacking this. Like, I think that they just assume everything is great. 8 of the 11 said they approved of what Musk was doing in this. And very few of these swing voters thought Musk was motivated by a personal gain.
Yeah. That's a great demographic to be tapping into for their opinion too. Because again, they're not dyed in the wool MAGA. This is people who made a deliberate choice in 2020 and switched in 2024. And
well, they asked
this
them
is the 53% approval rating.
Is Trump going to undermine and subvert the judiciary? And the one swing voter was like, that wouldn't happen. I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Another one of them said fear mongering. It was just amazing. So
that's crazy.
These actions that Musk and Trump are taking that are causing chickens with their head cut off, running all around the Beltway and freaking out. And voters back home are like, wait, you're squealing for once?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
It's all good. Well, but at least they're coming up with real bangers. You remember the song from Wednesday's show? We had the blue hairs out singing, which side are you on? Which side are you? That was great. At least we're getting some great music out of this movement, the anti-Trump movement. Josh, what's with the delay? Oh, I did want to just do a quick hat tip. Yes, Linda McMahon, former professional wrestling entertainer and wife of the great McMahon of WWE.
Executive. Yeah, I don't know if she actually did herself. Yeah.
I looked it up. She actually did. I mean, the internet could be lying to me, but she did dabble.
Her daughter did, but she did too. Wow. Okay.
Apparently. So yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The Linda McMahon, we are going to get to her hearing and the Department of Education and all the great Chris Rufo stuff that has been blowing up the internet and DOGE. We're going to do that on Monday with Jeremy, who loves to talk all things education. But Jeremy, Josh, yeah. We've had another delay, and it wasn't the Democrats. Kash Patel is still not confirmed as the head of the FBI. What happened? Where's Kash?
I mean, so this is the point. Like, I thought Tulsi would have the toughest time getting the support of at least 50 senators or whatever. And so Kennedy and Tulsi were voted on this week, while J.D. Vance, the vice president, flew to Paris to do the big conference that they're doing on artificial intelligence. And he's continuing his European tour. He's going to other countries and stuff like that. Very active vice president. I think he's doing a great job. But as soon as I heard about that in the news, I'm like, oh, well, that means Tulsi and Bobby Kennedy already have the 51 votes.
They're confident, right? They don't need JD.
They don't need a tiebreaker. They don't need JD Vance to stick around or fly back. That would be terrible. So, but the fact that Kash Patel, that they don't have a locked in 50 votes just yet, or certainly not 51.
Okay.
So, I think they're still trying to work on a few of these senators. It could be that he has the support of 50, but he doesn't have 51.
He's going to need
JD. Maybe they're waiting for JD Vance to come by. They might need to do a tie-breaking vote on him. So I that might be the case.
Yeah. Because everyone was dunking on John Thune about this. Because John Thune had sworn that he would, in fact, stay, work weekends, get it all done. And then it turns out they're flying to Germany to participate in the Security Council. But you think this is just
I just think it's
waiting for JD?
I think there's at least 3 Republicans in the Senate that have not committed to a yes vote, and therefore you don't
I
want to
get
bring
it.
up the vote and fail. So
Okay, I
that'd be
like it.
bad.
All right. Speaking of JD Vance, I have loved watching him this week. I mean, two of the speeches so far, the AI speech and then the one he gave either late last night or early this morning. It's hard to tell with the time change on European security. And these are great speeches. I mean, they're well constructed. They're something I would have my kids read. It's so refreshing, like you said. Definitely a little upgrade from the last 4 years of vice presidential speeches. But the one he gave this morning, I really want to dig into this for a minute. So he's speaking to the Security Council meeting. He's in Munich, in Germany, and he's got all of these heads of security from all over Europe in this room. And he starts off. This is this is just so great. He starts off talking about security concerns on the continent. Of course, everyone top of mind. We've got Ukraine and Russia, and this is how he opens the speech. What I worry about most vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's
Mhm.
not any other external actor. What I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. And then he goes on to tell the story of this last week, there was a former EU commissioner who got on some talk show and gave an interview saying how awesome it was that the Romanian government had annulled a free election in which the populist candidate won. And then the same commissioner went on to say, if the same thing happens in Germany at the next election, you can be sure the same result. We will shut down that election because the wrong guy won. And JD Vance says, this is another quote, we've been told that everything we fund, so speaking of American funding, which the EU loves, everything we fund is in the name of our shared democratic values. Ukraine policy, digital censorship. And he says, are we holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard of democratic values here? We must do more than talk about democratic values. We must live them. And it goes
And
on. I
yeah,
mean,
he actually said that means, in addition, that sometimes when the voters make their intentions known, you respect the will of the voters, even if you think they're wrong and you try to persuade them elsewise. You still have an obligation to serve the people, and
yeah,
you can try eventually. And I think about that when it comes to the United States with regards to abortion policy. Like I know in my heart of hearts, JD Vance shares with me this desire that the country would be much more pro-life than it is, but
right.
you have to respect the rule of the rule of the voters. It is a free country, and if they make mistakes and you think they made mistakes, you respect that as you try to persuade them towards a better alternative. But to
Exactly.
completely defy the will of free people is a dangerous thing, and the left talks about it all the time. You know, the threat
Our
to democracy.
democracy,
You're the ones throwing
constitutional
elections
crisis.
out over in Europe. Give me a break.
I know, I know. Can we just play this clip, actually, Simon? The one that I got choked up at this part. You'll be able to tell why.
Leaders have a choice. And my strong belief is that we do not need to be afraid of the future. You can embrace what your people tell you, even when it's surprising, even when you don't agree. And if you do so, you can face the future with certainty and with confidence, knowing that the nation stands behind each of you. And that, to me, is the great magic of democracy. It's not in these stone buildings or beautiful hotels. It's not even in the great institutions that we have built together as a shared society. To believe in democracy is to understand that each of our citizens has wisdom and has a voice. And if we refuse to listen to that voice, even our most successful fights will secure very little. As Pope John Paul II, in my view, one of the most extraordinary champions of democracy on this continent or any other, once said, do not be afraid. We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership. Thank you all. Good luck to all of you. God bless you. Leaders
I
have a
mean, that was great. I did. I
Yeah.
got choked up. It's like there's this kid who grew up in forgotten America, who is now on the world stage, not only quoting Catholic moral theology in Latin on Twitter. That's pretty based. But then to the face of all these European leaders who have been, I mean, we've covered to some extent the attacks on free speech. He calls out Sweden. He called out Germany. He called out the United Kingdom for just their horrific treatment of pro-life and religious citizens there. And to see that kid from Hillbilly Elegy come out on the world stage with this, I'm just like, this is great.
But
Oh,
some people aren't happy about that. We have,
what?
the national so-called Catholic reporter.
Communist reporter.
Yeah, they issued a little tweet here, an
Mm.
article. Pope Francis offered a paragraph of catechesis to Vice President J.D. Vance, whose foray into medieval theology was sophomoric. Call it hillbilly theology.
Wait, is that like a slur now?
I guess.
Hillbilly?
I mean, it's like,
Guys,
what a piece of work, the NCR. Give me a
do
break. This is
hear
not the National Catholic
yourselves.
Register, which is good.
Right,
This is the National Communist Reporter,
the
which
fish
is
wrap.
obviously bad. So
Oh my, and there's the title of the piece of that. I can't even talk. I'm so like refuting J.D. Vance's hillbilly theology. Pope Francis chastises U.S. bishops. I mean, guys, where is the welcoming and the stranger there? I would say not very. Yeah, the whole like, can
well,
nothing good come from
no, it
Nazareth?
just means that for at least the allies of Pope Francis, they have answered his calls to go to the peripheries and insult the peripheries. I mean, that's just so
Apparently,
shocking to me. And this attack on converts, like, welcome to our church, and if you convert, we'll attack you if you have the wrong opinions on things, and especially when he's quoting a saint correctly. Way to go, guys!
right. Well,
Well done.
a saint who was a convert, that would be Augustine, I believe. Like awkward moment there for the
Yes,
guy. Yeah, and
just
of course,
bizarre.
I mean, yeah, and Josh is referring to the CNN panel where there was a Catholic priest came on. I didn't get the link in here. Someone could find that. The Catholic priest comes on to like explain to the CNN panel. Scott Jennings, is he Catholic? He's sitting there like, who is this guy? And the priest decides to just take a pot shot at, oh, JD Vance has only been Catholic for 6 years. The Pope's been Catholic for 88 years. And I hear this a lot from the left on Twitter about like converts are somehow like they shouldn't have this voice in public for the church because they haven't been Catholic long enough. But
I mean, I
I
would say
don't
that,
understand
first of
that.
all, I would say that about somebody. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I would
No,
say
go
that about
for it.
somebody who like literally converts and then you immediately try to shove them in front of a microphone. So like
Yeah,
the woman Norma Jean McCovney, who was she
the
was the
row of Roe
she
v.
was
Wade.
yeah, she was the role of Roe v. Wade,
Mhm.
and then she became pro-life. They immediately put her in front of a microphone and talk about her story. And
Right,
I thought, it's a little risky on that. I didn't think that was
right,
necessarily the best thing. And so the idea when someone converts, you just immediately give them a megaphone, maybe, but maybe you should have them work a little bit, quietly on the side. But JD Vance came into the church, 6 years ago or so. He came, I think, in 2019. So it's like, it's not like he's, just came in there yesterday. And this is a guy who is well known for being, understanding what's going on, in the public debate. So he would have an ability to speak on the issue of immigration from a Catholic perspective. He's not
yeah,
illiterate. I mean, give me a break.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. We can go ahead and play this for the peeps here. Go ahead, Simon.
Are you helping them?
A very short theological lesson here, okay?
Preach, Father,
This is
preach.
Ordo Amoris, St. Augustine, 4th century father of the church. That means literally order of loves or order of charity. Augustine does not say you start with just your family and then work it out in these concentric circles that J.D. Vance is talking about. The Pope says, no, Mr. Vance, you who are a Catholic only for 6 years, I'm a Catholic for 88 years as being Pope. He's a convert to Catholicism. That's not what Augustine meant. Augustine meant the paradigm of the Good Samaritan, who is walking along, sees a Jew in a ditch who has been put there by robbers.
Okay, we can cut that off. He just goes on and on about how JD Vance doesn't understand scripture. What's missing from like the National Catholic reporters analysis, and like Father James Martin has an article out there. This priest goes on and on. There's no direct engagement with JD Vance and his actual argument here. Like there wasn't a, here, I'm going to quote Augustine to you and actually take this by piece. I'm going to ask JD Vance, well, what do you think the application of the Good Samaritan is? I would guess that JD Vance would not object to the Good Samaritan parable and be like, oh, this is somehow, opposed to Augustine's Ordo Amoris. There is only this sort of like slap on the wrist. You haven't been Catholic long enough. The Pope's the Pope, and you have to do whatever he tells you, that they're happy to wield now that the Pope is like, seems to be supporting their ideological bent. And that's what drives me crazy with any of the so-called discourse around this this catechesis that the Pope supposedly gave JD Vance this week.
Right. I think I'd like to call attention to this thread that was put out by Father Dominican. Can you be surprised? Dominican.
Oh, Father Peter.
Father Peter. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
awesome.
he's great.
He just, I think, illustrated quite clearly the differences between when more, let's say, Orthodox or more conservative, let's say, for lack of a better term, traditionalist conservatives have a problem with Pope Francis, as opposed to when the liberals had a problem with John Paul or Benedict. Because Father Peter's right. I think it is a distinct difference. He goes, some people claim that conservative Catholics treat Francis differently than John Paul II or Benedict, allegedly because Francis disagrees with them while JPII Benedict agreed with them. I don't think this is true, Father Peter says. I think they show the same attitude, but under changed circumstances. And so his point was, look at the response to Francis's recent letter on immigration, right? He said, the left who supports it, they're not really doing much in the ways of explaining and exposing the different ideas and the justifications of why Francis is right on this issue, let's say. They just say, they literally are just like, oh, Pope Francis said this, you have to obey. And of course, if you don't, you're against the Pope and you're not being Catholic. That's all the arguments are. Like, this is so short-sighted, as opposed to when John Paul would write something or Benedict would say something that, like, let's say, more of the conservative side would enjoy. What the conservatives wouldn't say, he's the Pope, you got to agree with it. We would say, here's why this makes sense. The Pope has lined this up with church teaching. This is what's going on. That's why John Paul is saying this. Right. We would explain and further articulate the circumstances based on the situation. You don't find that. It's just like, hey, you need to obey, which is pretty rich because the liberals were the ones that were openly defiant of John Paul and Benedict. They were completely dissident. And now they're like, you have to be super,
ultramontanist.
It boggles the mind, and it's like, and they're like, oh, well, you're just doing the same thing we did back then. I'm like, no. Like, even when Benedict would come out or John Paul would come out with stuff, I'd be like, no, I don't really like John
like his
Paul.
apologies during the Millennium celebration, when he's like, we're going to apologize to, the Jews and the Muslims, and we're going to have the prayer services. That was an example where, like, so-called conservative Catholics are like, but trying to understand why he was doing
a little bit more leeway on that, but there's some that were pretty ticked. I mean, I did not appreciate and I did not support John Paul's his explanation of the death penalty, where he's like, well, technically it could be allowed, but only in this circumstance, which is pretty much totally remote and would never happen. And I'm like, I think you're forgetting something here. There's another whole argument and rationale and support for the death penalty, that you're not even bringing to bear, and you're not confronting it. So I disagree with him, but I love him. I and his argument I thought was respectful. I don't think he was trying to dunk on anyone. I just disagreed with it. But I give him respect that I would because of the office and because of him. And I truly love John Paul. And Benedict would talk about stuff like on, condoms in Africa. And I'm like, well, I see your point. And I still wasn't like super there, but it's not like I agreed with everything that these two ever said. It's just that, with Pope Francis, he weighs in on this issue of immigration in a way that was just like, you didn't just kind of come up with general principles. You're basically articulating stuff that is in opposition to would seemingly be in opposition to the catechism. Like, are we the only country that is not allowed to deport people that have entered in illegally? I mean, it's just kind of crazy. So I got to give credit to Father Peter for this. I thought it was a very good explanation of the differences between the approaches here. And
Yeah. Father Peter's been amazing on all things with this whole week, and sometimes I despair of Twitter and I think it's completely toxic, and then he's worth a follow. He's worth staying on Twitter alone, so just give him
just
a follow.
posted it in the chat for the people.
That's right. Put Father Peter in the chat. We love it. Okay, I'm gonna swing over. We're gonna go back to Europe.
We need
here.
more Dominicans and less Jesuits.
Yes, more Dominicans. Oh, hey, they're having vocations retreats. Check them out. Province of St. Joseph. Great guys. I actually don't know if Father Peter's in that province, but the guys I know are. And the Hillbilly Thomas, speaking of hillbillies, and they're really good at music. So check them out. All right.
I know. That's why I kind of hope they took it as a badge of honor. Maybe that's what JD Vance will, like in his Twitter bio, will put
Hillbilly
in there.
Thomas.
Hillbilly theologian.
Hillbilly theologian. I mean, I'm here for it. Flannery O'Connor, too, who's a favorite of the NCR crowd. She was a proud Hillbilly Thomist. All right. Update on Ukraine. So continuing the European tour here, we had Pete Hegseth over in Poland addressing NATO defense ministers and some of these questions about how the Trump administration is dealing with Ukraine, the thinking behind it. Then we had a Trump call with Vladimir Putin this week. I mean, yeah, the left is losing their minds over it. And we've got hostages coming home. We've got more detained Americans coming home. So I want to just back it up a little bit. The Pete Hegseth thing was really interesting. So in his address to the NATO defense ministers, he put a couple principles forward on the U.S. approach to ending the Ukraine war. Said basically, European Union, NATO, other NATO countries, you've got to pick up the slack here, right? Like we all need to be part of the solution. America's been doing too much. Secondly, the United States position is, one, we will not be sending any of our American troops over there. So American boots on the ground, not on the table. He also said it would be unrealistic to return to the 2014 borders. So the borders including like the Donbass and Crimea. So he's like, it's not realistic. We need a realistic negotiation. Interestingly, that speech, which was very strong and very specific, he walks it back a little bit yesterday.
He did, but before he walked the walk back part, he also said, correct me if you already said it, but like no U.S. troops in Ukraine, which is a key point.
Yeah, he did not walk that back at all. He did come. So this was what he came out with yesterday. All of that said, these negotiations are led by President Trump. Everything is on the table in his conversations with Vladimir Putin and Zelensky. What he decides to allow or not allow is at the purview of the leader of the free world, of President Trump. So I'm not going to stand at this podium and declare what President Trump will do or won't do, or what will be in or what will be out, what concessions will be made. Josh, can you just decipher that political? What is he saying here? Is he really walking all that back?
Well, I don't know if he's all walking it back, but he doesn't want to get too ahead of his skis, and he wants to give Trump more leeway to have a wide open table in terms of everything that could possibly be discussed. But even this could have been like, well, did Hegseth make a mistake here? Like, no, actually, it was probably Trump's probably okay with it. Like, throw stuff out there and then reel it back in. But you kind of show some of your cards. Like, you're not really enthusiastic. You don't want troops there. That's probably Trump definitely agrees with that. And like throwing out the idea that, it's unrealistic to have the same borders in 2014. What, just to at least hint at it. Like, I keep coming back to that point. Like,
right.
What do you want, Ukraine? What is your goal here? Is it more important for you to have 100% of all the territory back? Or is it better to just end the war at some point, like cut your losses? And I mean, it's an evil, aggressive, neighbor. I get that. So like, some people would push back at that and say, well, you don't want to basically create an incentive where Russia thinks, oh, see, that was worth it. I was able to pick up more territory that way. So I get it. It's a fight there. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Putin's a little bit out of his mind.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, Trump said he spoke with President Putin this week on, let's see, either Wednesday or Tuesday. Sorry, my notes are screwed up here. So Trump spoke with the president and he said that they had agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately. They plan to meet soon. The speculation is they'll be meeting in Saudi Arabia. this was interesting too. ABC just released this clip of Trump saying that he and Putin are working on ceasing production of all nuclear weapons as well. Go ahead and play that clip, Simon, because this is pretty interesting.
No, we got no audio.
Oh, audio.
Global defense spending, you, China,
Well, I'd
Russia.
like to have that, as soon as things settle down, I'm going to have that conference, primarily with China and Russia, because those are the two that really are out there. And we're going to have them spend a lot less money, and we're going to spend a lot less money. And I know they're going to do it. They agreed to it. We were talking about denuclearizing, and President Putin and I agreed that we were going to do it in a very big way. There's no reason for us to be building brand new nuclear weapons. We already have so many. You could destroy the world 50 times over, 100 times over. And here we are building new nuclear weapons, and they're building nuclear weapons, and China's building new nuclear weapons, and China's trying to catch up because, you know, they're very substantially behind, but within 5 or 6 years,
little
they'll be
dig there.
even. And we're all spending a lot of money that we could be spending on other things that are actually hopefully much more productive. Hopefully there'll never be a time when we need those weapons. If there's ever a time when we need nuclear weapons, like the kind of weapons that we're building and that Russia has and that China has to a lesser extent, but will have, that's going to be a very sad day. That's going to be probably oblivion.
That's it.
So I do want to tee up on one of the things he said, almost as a throwaway line, but like that money we're wasting on this stuff that could be spent on other stuff. And that's kind of one of the things I think with this DOGE stuff that's going on, where they're saving all this money by cutting the spending, it would be great if Donald Trump would use that money to the extent possible through Congress or whatever, through just like, you know, obviously I love tax cuts or whatever, but in lieu of that, if you actually did something visual, like all this money that we're wasting on all these projects, DOGE, like millions for a comic book, you know, in Peru or whatever. And if you took that and instead put it to use and like updated our bridges and highways and our airports,
Yeah,
and
like touch grass with it. To
like,
use the
yes,
phrase.
like something you'd be able to visually
Right.
see. Like, why is LaGuardia like such a dumpy airport? You know what I'm
Hey,
saying?
they updated. No, it's not so bad now. All right, LaGuardia.
Really? Okay.
But we really could improve. LA still needs help, I have to say. Yeah. I mean, they need more than that, but
you know, update like this
No, I know what
bridge
you
was
mean.
this bridge
Yes.
was renovated because we didn't send, you know, $8 million to a comic book in Peru for transgender kids.
Put
you
it
know.
right there.
Why
I
not?
love
Just
that.
put it on the sign. That'd be great.
I think that would be awesome. I would also like to see a statue to the great Judge Scalia, whose I believe the death anniversary is this week, if not today, possibly. So pray for his soul. But I'd love to see some of this money going to statues in our public spaces. American pride. Like come on, guys. But I know what you mean. I would love to see like the paid for you because we didn't pay for
Yeah, wouldn't it be great?
line item.
I have too many of these good ideas, I tell you.
Yeah, I know, Mercer. I mean, it's overwhelming.
Obviously, I
right?
need to run for Congress.
Or
or Senate in Michigan. Although it's funny. So Michigan, there is a Senate race going on. I am not going
Yeah.
to run, by the way. Thank you very much.
good.
But
Yeah, well, we
it
can't
is
lose you, too.
interesting that Pete Buttigieg is thinking about, you know, running or whatever.
Gosh.
And he's from Indiana.
That's right.
So here's the funny thing. Actually, something that Pete Buttigieg and I have in common. We were on the same plane ride just the other day. Also, we're not natives of Michigan, although he moved in 10 minutes ago. I moved here 20 years ago. So there's a little bit of a difference. But of all the different states in the union.
He's like a recent convert. You're like a cradle, sort of. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Just
no, but it's just funny. Like the way we are as, you know, as a country, there's certain states like Nevada and Arizona where the number of people that live in that state that were born there, that still live there. In other words, the percentage of residents in that state who are born there is really low, like in Nevada, you know, in Arizona. But Michigan, I think if it's not number one, it's number two. Like literally 75% of the people in Michigan that live there are from Michigan.
That's like, really neat.
It's going to be it's like, you know, Democrats, do you really want to put Indiana Pete in there? So just food for thought, people.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm totally going to like go look that up because that really interests me. Like the native borns, who's there? That's really cool. Very Wendell Berry. So DOGE, I think we have enough time. We have more DOGE updates. Speaking of, oh gosh, where to start? So the New York Post broke this story yesterday. Oh, the Department of Health and Human Services turns out ramped up grants for migrants between 2020 and 2024. Gee, I wonder what was happening during that time, including cash assistance to buy cars, homes, and even build credit for startup businesses. According to this watchdog report, in 2023 alone, NGOs receiving grants for migrants received $10 billion over the entire course of the Biden administration. It was $22.6 billion. And this, to be clear, is through HHS and their Office of Refugee Resettlement, which is the exact government agency that lost track of 32,000 unaccompanied minor children. This was the agency responsible for children who came here unaccompanied. They were given court dates and given to people who said that they were relatives, and they never show up for their court dates. They were lost, literally lost by this agency, which continued to be shoveled billions and billions of dollars for migrants, and apparently not the children, though, because they didn't know where they were. I mean, this was just, again, these numbers alone are mind-blowing. And to see people defending this spending to the hilt, including the Democratic National Convention representatives, to see them defending it to the hilt is just so out of touch. Like, Americans see these numbers and then they look at like the aftermath of Helene and Milton in the Carolinas, in Georgia, Tennessee, and they look at LA and they look at that number and they're like, gosh, what could we have bought for $22.6 billion? And again, like this kind of the DOGE stories just continue to proliferate. And I think for sure Trump is owning the narrative here. What's up, Josh?
In the chat, the purpose of a system is what it does. I feel like I'm teaching my teachings, my people. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. The words of the oracle come true again. That's right. Speaking of system,
you talked about like all this misspending for immigration. I actually had it as my Twilight, but I'll just bring it up right now. Just that people may not realize this, but Bill Clinton used to be totally against illegal immigration because illegal immigration was also hot in the mid 90s. And so he passed the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act. That act contained a provision that specifically prohibits states from providing in-state college tuition rates to, quote, an alien who is not lawfully present in the United States, unless a citizen or national of the United States is eligible for such benefit, without regard to the citizen national of that state. So that means, let's pick a state, California. You're not allowed to do in-state tuition to illegal immigrants. Guess what?
Let me guess.
California does it anyway. Here's the other thing.
On brand.
25 states do this. It's not just California. States like Arizona. Like, you would think, wait, what? Arizona's super conservative or whatever. It's only become liberal recently. Dude, they do this. 25 states. And like at a bare minimum, it's totally egregious, because if I, who live in Michigan, like maybe one of my kids wants to go to Arizona State. Oh, you have to pay out-of-state tuition. We're not going to subsidize the taxpayers of another state. I'm like, okay, I get that. That makes sense. But wait a minute now. Like, if my daughter like snuck into the country illegally, you would allow it to happen? I mean, it just boggles my mind. Yeah. And this is the kind of thing that Washington doesn't understand it in the mainstream media. Like, this is just a normie belief, normal person belief.
Normal,
like
common sense.
You don't give in-state tuition to people who are illegal. You don't charge someone from a neighboring state more money than someone who came into your country illegally. It is profoundly immoral. And the liberals like, well, illegals pay taxes too. They pay sales taxes, they pay wage taxes. I get that, but they're still paying overall less taxes, and they're still part of an underground economy. And in fact, they're getting subsidized in many ways. So no, this is totally egregious and baloney.
Yep. Makes sense to me, for sure. Hey, something else that's not making sense to a lot of people, though. It is FAQ Friday, so I'm going to leave a little time for the FAQs. Catholic Vote has endorsed the Texas school choice bill.
Yes.
That's going through, that really must pass. And I have to say, we made the announcement and we got a lot of feedback about this. There's definitely a divide among Catholics about the morality or prudential wisdom of school choice vouchers. So I'm going to read this letter. I think this was really well written, just posing, okay, why are we supporting this? So, hello. I have a question about school choice vouchers. If government money in the form of vouchers can be used toward private education, will that affect the private schools to start operating as public schools, basically? Would they start including government ideals in their curriculum, i.e., the gay trans agenda under Biden? I just worry that we might be inviting the government to have more control that we realize with bills like the Texas bill. All right, Josh.
I love
Are
this
vouchers a
question. I
slippery
love it.
slope? Are they the slippery slope? Please.
I love this question. This is
Me
the question. The only thing I would say about this is, the University of Notre Dame, which has had a very interesting, twists and turns, right? This is, I think, one of the most important points when it comes to the intersection of faith and politics. It doesn't get talked about enough. The University of Notre Dame, when the healthcare bill was going down, we at Catholic Vote were very loud about this. We're like, look, they're going to try to sneak in this provisions with the coded language, and as soon as they get in, they're going to force everyone in the country to have healthcare policies, insurance policies that cover abortion, abortifacients, sterilizations, this kind of stuff, contraception. And the left's like, no, what are you talking about? You just don't want poor people to get healthcare.
Oh, right. That's what we want.
So as soon as they get in, as soon as the bill gets passed, they in fact do exactly what we said. Like, thank you. I wish we would have been proven wrong, but we were proven dead right again. Thank you very much. And Notre Dame's like, well, we got to fight this. We have religious liberty. The federal government can't force a Catholic college into paying for abortifacients, contraception in our healthcare. So they fight. And here's the thing. I think they expected that they were going to lose.
Ooh,
but after many, many years, they actually won. The court said, you are right. You have a religious exemption, the religious liberty, in our laws. The federal government has to make a very strict case for why it needs to supplant your religious liberty. And this doesn't meet that criteria.
Thank you, Notre Dame.
You are free, Notre Dame, not to accept and follow this HHS mandate. And
that's great news.
Awesome. We're going to do it anyway. They literally won the legal right to not wait. The government did not force them. The government tried to force them. And the court said, no, you can't do that. And Notre Dame says, screw it. We're going to offer this anyway. And so my point would be like religious institutions can fail even when the government doesn't force them. Even when the government says, no, you are right. You absolutely can stay Catholic and do everything you want. And that doesn't prevent our Catholic institutions from going, waving the white flag to the culture anyway. And so I would make this point, like, listen, there are Catholic institutions over the last decades who have whittled down the faith and watered it down without any government forcing it to. But by liberating these schools and allowing Catholic schools to flourish, we're opening the floodgates, and there are now hundreds of millions more students in places like Florida, Iowa, who are able to go to Catholic schools. There was just a report that came out yesterday from the Daily Signal saying public schools get a big old D- grade and Catholic schools got an A. That doesn't mean every Catholic school in the country is immaculate. I'm not saying that. There are some that could do better.
It's the national average, right?
But we're doing a lot better overall. And the fact of the matter is, it's not just that HHS mandate. We've had numerous Supreme Court rulings over the last 15 years. This court has strongly ratified religious liberty. Some cases, a 9-0 verdict when it came to who you could hire and fire, because there was a question about whether a religious school could have, hey, you're a teacher at this religious school, but and Obama's EEOC fired it, said, no, hold on a second. You have to have, you can't discriminate on the basis of sexuality. You can't fire a gay teacher. And this religious school is like, this teacher is a minister, and we can't have people teaching our classes who flout our teachings. It was actually a Lutheran school, by the way. It was on a Tabor. And the Supreme Court 9-0 sided with the school. So we have had a very rich religious liberty background in this court. Nothing's a guarantee, but this is the time to do it. We have a strong case law on our side. The Catholic schools in this country have the right to be Catholic. Let's get this bill passed. We've seen it flourish in Florida for over 25 years. Other states like Wisconsin, have done it piecemeal. Indiana, Iowa, who bust open the doors and let just about anyone in. I want this bill in Texas to be as wide open as it's possible. It might have to start a little small to begin with, maybe 100,000 kids at first, but we got to get this done. The teachers unions are the ones that are standing in the way of this, and they don't like getting rid of control. So I support this bill with every fiber of my being.
Great. That's a great answer. Great answer. Let's go for it. Let's give kids more choices. All right. So it is Valentine's Day, and Mercer, I think we have found what will convert you to the celebration of today. Listener David sent us some Valentines. So Simon, do you have them queued up? I'm just going to read these aloud for those of you on audio. We have Trump. We have a Valentine here with Trump and some hearts. You stole my heart like a 2020 election.
That's pretty funny.
All right, let's try another one. All right. Oh, here. I want you on my side of the wall. That's so good. I just want you with me. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. All right. What do we got? Another one? Come on. Trump. China keeps beating us in trade, but I wouldn't trade you for the world.
Oh.
So sweet. Todd, are you listening? I think he's listening. All right. I don't know. This one got cut off a little. We have Trump with the bowler hat on. Nobody wishes you a happy Valentine's Day better than me. And you have the best Valentine's Day card anyone has ever received. All other cards, losers. It's true. You know it, and they know it. So there we go. See, Josh, Valentine's Day can be fun.
All right.
Maybe you can get one of these for Lori next year. This is pretty fun.
So I just want a little question right now. I'll pull it right from the chat.
Yep.
Is it Mama Beth? My eyes are not so good.
Yeah, I know.
She asked us if we heard about this state senator in Washington State proposal to break the seal of confession.
The seal of confession case.
We did write about this at Catholic Vote, and I've actually reached out to some of those lawmakers and talked to them about some ideas. I mean, my idea would be like, hey, sometimes you just have to expose, this kind of idiocy by other idiocy. My point would be like, why don't you amend the bill to violate attorney-client privilege? Right? I mean, this is what they're saying. Like, they're saying that something that normal, a sacred seal that can't be broken, the government can't break it up. They can't open up and tell people, but you're allowing the government to smash the seal of the confessional. Well, why can't the government smash the seal between attorney and client? No, we understand.
Or doctor patient.
We of course understand that somebody. Yeah. We understand that somebody who might be convicted of a crime or accused of a crime should have complete, full liberty to speak to the counsel without any fear, like say everything, and we consider that to be sacrosanct. Well, why is it that that isn't sacrosanct between me and my minister? Yeah. That's the same principle. Is that we want to make sure that anyone who approaches the minister has 100% and total freedom. But if that minister is then obligated to turn around and say, oh, by the way, Josh did X, Y, and Z to the government, well, then who's going to go to the confessional then? That's the whole point.
Amen.
Got to have freedom.
Yeah, and it's not the only state where this is up for grabs. I don't know if I have to check the number 18, but we have someone in the chat.
They put forward with it in Montana, and it got tabled for now, but it's always something that comes around. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Connecticut had it a couple of years ago. Vermont's had it. I mean, it comes around. So just be aware of your local state politics going on. Josh, do you have a hard stop here? We're 1 minute out. So let's move. We have another Twilight Zone for us there. I know we already spent one.
Well, I just think it's kind of a funny clip. I got to say, when it comes to lawmakers in Washington, we're not sending our best. Here's a video clip here. I don't know which congresswoman this was, but she thought there might be a reason why not as many women are involved in manufacturing. We got the clip here on my...
Roll the tape.
Yesterday, I met with a manufacturing company, but they also are engaged in getting young people more engaged in manufacturing. So I asked them, so how many of those students that are signing up and want to do this, how many are women? And they said, well, I know there's at least 13% or something. It was a low number. And you had mentioned trying to engage more women in manufacturing. I'm just wondering if just the name manufacturing sounds like a guy.
Oh no.
Because it
Wait.
starts with man, you know.
Oh my gosh, seriously? We're going to call it womanfacturing?
We need to call it humanufacturing because it's
Humanifacturing?
humanufacturing. I mean,
Guys.
as you know,
Oh.
it's like, you know, I think it was Senator Mike Lee who just said, you know, by the way, the word comes from the Latin word manus, which means hand. It's something you made with your hand. You know, like it's not even give me a break.
Josh, stop mansplaining it to me, okay? Like, what is
I'm
going
handsplaining it.
Handsplaining it, not
Manus.
mansplaining.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. That
Apparently,
reminds
this was
me.
somebody's congressman in the chat. That's funny.
Oh my god. Oh, hello. You might want to primary that one. Yeah, that reminds me of there was this you know, a more elderly woman in our parish way up in Podunk, New Hampshire, many years ago. And if she stood behind you at mass, you would hear this every time. So as the priest would say, you know, the Lord be with you and with your spirit, or like, go in peace, the masses and thanks be to God. At the great amen, you would hear her behind you. A woman. And you're just like, girl, lady, come on. She was very convicted, though. She had the strength of her conviction. A woman. Anyway, thanks for joining us. It is Valentine's Day, so for my Twilight Zone, I just wanted to end with a reminder. Tomorrow, St. Valentine, of course, great martyr. And this year is the 10th anniversary of another set of great martyrs. We actually have 3 St. Valentines, who I think were all martyrs that we're celebrating today. But we have a group of martyrs, the Coptic martyrs. These were men who were martyred for the faith on the beach. One of them was actually a Muslim who saw the courage of these Christian men who were going to die for their faith, and he joined them. He said, "These are my brothers," and he joined them on that beach. Last year, the Pope declared that they were, in fact, saints. He established the feast day, which we celebrate tomorrow. So on this day that we remember the love of the martyrs for the faith, I just wanted to remind you, this is the 10th anniversary of the death of these modern martyrs. And so I ask all the Coptic martyrs to pray for us. If you want to help us as well, please ask for the intercession of our patrons. We have St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and St. Thomas More. Pray for us, and we will see you all on Monday with the great Jeremy Tate.